All right, Lions fans, we're back with another one. I'm going to continue from the last video of where do we go from here, or not where do we, but where does the Lion as an organization go from here? Um, and I guess I just immediately get started with it. I was when I how I ended the last video was like I was lost for words of trying to find like how to be successful with the Lions organization, and I had different, variations of ways of doing it, but nothing really stuck, but I recently was looking at something that, that gave me this idea, like how for the Lions organization to be successful. I would say the best way for them to be successful, uh, is that in terms of them hiring a new general manager or hiring a new head coach, so forth. If you hire the coach first, that's backwards. But if you hire the general manager first, let's say for example we started there. When hiring a general manager, this individual has to be so authentic, so original that is almost like defiance. That it shouldn't be even acceptable of how they're going to do it. You know, and with that, they had to have the time and the position to orchestrate it, as well as the time, as well as when they initially, you have to see it moving at the beginning stage of it. You have to see it moving to be able to support it. So if I were to use the the bad boys as as the point that I'm going to make, is that when they hired Chuck Daly, I believe Chuck Daly had, at the time he was with Cleveland Cavaliers, or he was coaching some other team, and I don't know if he was assistant, whatever that he was. He wasn't really there was no name for him and nothing like that. So when he came here with nothing to work with. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think at the time he had maybe guys like Terry Tyler, Earl Cureton, I don't John Long, Detroit natives, so forth, and I don't know what they had to work with, but where it took off was, or where it took off at, is when they drafted, of course, Isaiah Thomas. What Chuck Daly did, he did something that was kind of different. What Jack McCloskey did, they did something that was kind of different. They really don't have nothing to go with. I don't. When you take the position or something, you may have the idea how you want to do it, but until you actually get here in the city, you're not coming to a city that's actually booming in one area. You can say they're booming in the automotive industry. I get that, but not really as much. So you come in here, you really don't know what you're getting yourself into until you get here, until you get inside of it. And by the time you realize what you got yourself into, you kind of knee deep into it. So up to that point, it has to been showing some signs of that has been productive. Otherwise, you out the door. I mean, at that point, by the time that the general manager or the coach is understanding what they got themselves into, and let's say specifically talking about the Lions, by the time they recognize what they signed up for, is almost too late, because you may come in with this preconceived idea how you're going to do it. So, with that being said, let's say for example they went out the way and they hired a head coach. If the popular name is Eric Bieniemy, or if you want to go to something that is not as popular but the name is recognizable, you could say Jim Harbaugh. All right, let's say like if you went either way with them, what they would do here, they would have to do something that's so different than where they came from that is almost terrifying to the average fan. And it has to show like the players, not even maybe the upper management or whatever. I don't know, but the players that they have here, which I do believe they have a good crop of players, that actually can buy in. What I mean by that, a good crop, they're willing to buy into something, to winning, that is. If you get a guy that, once again, it's kind of tough because the guys that they accumulated here may be comfortable with how things was done, not up under Patricia, but they came from the same place where Patricia came from, so they're used to a certain way how it's done. I believe this group is ready to go based upon where they came from or where they are at their point in their career. That you get a coach that not just knows what he's talking about, but you can see you can see where they're going, as well as you're tying it to what you already know. That's why I believe why the Patricia and Darius Slay and those players that was up under, not Darius Slay, but the guys that was up under the Caldwell regime, why they didn't really get along, because it was actually somewhat working, and you're saying that it didn't work. So the guy that they will have to hire, let's say as a head coach, we have to be so original, so authentic, that they can't base it off anything else. They can't base it off what they did somewhere else. This is what I'm talking about. The average fan can't really base it off, and it has to be like a culture shock. And with that, it's almost like you have to do something that's like orthodox. It has to be really against the grain. Because if you bring somebody in here that you're familiar with what they've done, they're gonna be carrying the expectations of where they did it at, or where they and so forth, and it's a dicey situation. So if you bring in a Jim Harbaugh, you're gonna base what your expectation is gonna be based upon what he did from San Francisco, what he did with Michigan. That's gonna be your expectations. And okay, if you bring him here, you're gonna have the idea or the expectation that you got to have immediate results, which is going to be tough. If you get a guy that's a first time coach, such as like Eric Bieniemy, what was done with Kansas City, that's not him. That was Andy Reid. What Andy Reid has cultivated through the years of, I believe he was up under Mike Holmgren, I believe, and all that good stuff. And when he went to Philadelphia, he was able to start his own, and it worked. So to get Eric Bieniemy, you're going to basically have to have the environment. But then again, if he comes in here, if right now, if the players are looking at him now as saying that's a guy that I can get behind, then you probably got a good shot of winning with him out the gate. The players have to it's almost like the players have to elect the next coach, even for the coaches elected. Let's say, like, for example, they like Bevel. So they just like him, how he conducts things. And that's from offense, special teams, and defense. They all three faces like him. So they got a good shot of doing that. But if they don't, it's going to really stink for the coach they bring in. So what do? You have to have somebody to take over. That's why I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of in season firing. I'm not a fan of it because it leaves you like in a place where you can't really win going forward. That's why I say like how this organization is ran. It is like it's done like in a way that is destined to fail. But it's like the decision is based upon the fans, but the fans is it like anticipating that the ownership will know what they're doing, how to run this team to be successful. But it's like they both are leaning off each other. So that's why I said this team is in desperate need of a leader. Okay, Jack McCloskey was very inventive. How he accumulated the bad boys. He was very inventive. That how he structured that has never been done before. So I don't know if that was a combination of him and Chuck Daly, or that was going off the drafting of Isaiah Thomas. But you really got nothing to go with Isaiah Thomas until, of course, when you got Jack McCloskey or Chuck Daly here. I think at the time they brought in three players. I think they just either traded for or signed. I think it was traded for Bill Laimbeer from Cleveland. I think Bill Laimbeer was with Chuck Daly, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, forgive me. Um, if I am mistaken, forgive me. Um, and they had John Long was still here, stuff like that. The natives, the Detroit natives were here. Terry Tyler, I believe, Earl Curitan, and so forth. I believe that's how it goes. But Bill Laimbeer, Vinnie Johnson, and Isaiah Thomas, I believe, was like the first ones, like pretty much here. The veterans were Bill Laimbeer and Vinnie Johnson, and Isaiah Thomas was a drafted player. You really don't have nothing to go with. So it was up until all you had was Isaiah Thomas just being who he was, being tough as nails, just being tough. And they built off of that. It was up until they started to play hard ball. And I want to say when they got Rick Mahorn, it was up until they started playing hard ball. Like I said, doing something that's against the grain. And not literally trying to hurt anybody, but they start playing like really tough ball. And then to get this name that they were considered bad for the league. So during that time, they just embraced it. Detroit Lions have to do something similar. They have to get an identity here because there's so much of the losing. It's not like a general manager or a head coach is going to the Pistons or going to the Red Wings or going to the Tigers, where the ice has been broken already of being a winner. The Lions really never, in the Super Bowl era, they've never been winners at all. You could say 91, I said that's a fluke of a bottle. I mean, there's a fluke of a deal. That's a fluke of a bottle, a lightning in the bottle. That was a fluke of a thing. And this guy who they bring in has to be so against the grain. It was almost like what Jim Schwartz was doing. Jim Schwartz was letting the guys be the guys. And it was working, actually. It was actually working. But the thing is that when it was time to reel in the players to play IQ smart ball, they would still make those type of loose end plays, the penalty at crucial times. So that's where it falls off. But the guy that they bring in, he have to be against the rails. He have to be really out there. So I want to say Jim Harbaugh, but excuse me, pardon me. I believe that you had to give him too much power for him to work. Rex Ryan is an interesting pick now that I think about it. If he still has the motivation, and to some degree, I believe his motivation came from actually beating the Patriots. I believe that was his motivation. Just wanted to beat that team. And I don't know if anybody comes in with that kind of attitude, that kind of, that Jimmy Johnson type of attitude. They're not really dictators. They're just nasty. But they have this expectation for excellence. And I don't know if he's all tapped out because I don't know if there's anybody he has to prove. The guy that I always liked for them to have the Lions to have taken it was Mike Tomlin, but I don't know if he ever been in a position that he had to rebuild something from the ground up. Now, he came from a team that was actually winning before he got there. When he took over, I believe that was an in-house hiring when he took over for Pittsburgh, but it was already winning. So to come here, they're not winning at all. Not just this year for the last 3 years, or, they never really got over the hump winning. Every time they would get to the place of doing that, they'd tear it down. Wayne Fontes was there, and he couldn't get over the hump, so they tore it down. Millen came in, wrecked all that. So Millen gets out of the way. They get Mayhew. Mayhew brings in 2 coaches that's actually tearing down what Millen did, and then they tear that down. Now you're back from ground zero again. But you're not at ground zero with nothing to deal with. You have, I would say, you have a quarterback that's really, you don't really know what to do. What do you go forward with or whatever you can, but you kind of stuck because his contract situation and so forth. Do you extend him? Do you not? Or you put all this investment into the previous regime, the draft picks, when they was picking third. And Luke G, man, you do say some stuff that's kind of questionable at the time, but but like you said, until it actually comes out, then that's when people will understand. When you said he was saying pick Isaiah Simmons, not for the current regime, but after they leave. My only problem with that was I still didn't trust the Fords to know what to do with that draft pick. And what I mean by that is that it didn't matter who they got at 3. But I do understand the point that you're making about drafting Isaiah Simmons over Okudah. Is because I say what I say because I don't know who the Fords will actually. I just don't trust this organization of the owners of the organization. I'm gonna say it that way, that who they will pick to actually. That, in other words, I believe a lot of people have taken advantage of the Fords when they get hired here. They sell them like as though they're being genuine. And I believe a lot of people got over Mr. Ford. I believe a lot of people got over on him because I believe I don't consider him as, let me say, I consider him as a guy that was maybe a nice guy. I don't want to call him a pushover, but I would call him a guy who was actually probably was a good, decent dude. And I believe a lot of people took advantage of that. I'm going to particularly say like the Millen situation. But then again, that could be just how he ran things. I don't know. But let's say, like, for the sake of hypothetically saying that he was a genuine guy, I believe a lot of people took advantage of that. They sold that they have intentions of actually doing something. But when they get here, they get very comfortable and relaxed. And they're like, forget all that. I don't care. I'm collecting a check. So to find find a coach, is like within this group of players. Let's say this way. Within the next, what are the records there? I don't even know what their record is at this point. I know they lost 7 games. So were they 5-7? So you're looking at that's 12 games. So it's 16 games in the season. So they got 4 more games to determine. Within these four games, I'm looking for one player to stand out on a very consistent basis. So this would be the time for Matthew Stafford to stand up. You got a new head coach coming in or whatever, interim coach. You got all this coming in. This is the time for Matthew Stafford to actually be the leader of the team. This is the very time. Not leader just on the field, but leader how to conduct everything. This the bone. I mean, he got 12 years in. This is the time for him to be the leader. If not him, I expect there would be one guy that is so infectious, like I want to say like a Ben Wallace type, come from nowhere, don't have really nothing to lose, but get the opportunity, and some success comes out of it, and they don't want to let go of that success, so they keep feeding it. It keeps growing. I'm looking for that one in these next 4 games. I'm looking for that one type of guy that they can build off of. And I believe it doesn't matter. See, that's just the thing. If they win, they take themselves out of the position of getting a high draft pick. You know, once again, it's just a tough position. But I will say this: if the guy that's here that actually in these next 4 games that's up on a contract that can stand up and start being the leader of this team, not with his mouth or but with his play. That's how I believe that the Warren Sapp and the Derrick Brooks happened. Through the concept of losing, those two stood out. And then a guy like John Lynch kicks in, and then a few other people, and you build. But this is the time right now for that one particular guy that's on the team. If that guy is on the team, they may have to go get it in the offseason, which would hold them back another one. But it would be actually significantly great if that one guy is on the team that's willing to stand up right now in these next not just 4 games, but through this whole process of firing a coach and of course there's going to be a liberation period where the players going to may actually ball out. It depends. It may be a split room again because you got the guys that supported him that may not want to ball out for Bevel. It's a bad situation. So I'm looking in these next 4 games, one guy to stand up. And above all else, I'm looking for Matthew Stafford to honestly finally be the guy that I thought that he always could be. Is a bona fide leader, like the alpha guy, not the guy that does it when it's crunch time, when he has to, when the pressure. I just need this guy just to be the leader, i.e. Isaiah Thomas. Put the team on my back. Let's go win. No, not just win, but let's play at a certain tone. I mean, mistake-free, but that's kind of hard coming from him because he makes a lot of mistakes himself. But then the fan could say, well, his mistakes will be based upon the other players not doing their job. And once again, you are in this. I would need Matthew Stafford to be the guy regardless of which. So that's what makes it kind of interesting. That's why I'm not a supporter of the quarterback being the face of the team versus a guy who has the ball in their hand predominantly all the time. Or they are at the point of attack and it's not based upon them having the ball in their hand. They just setting the tone. This is where the Derrick Brooks comes in. Oh, no, the Ray Lewis of the world comes in at. Ray Lewis didn't have the ball in his hand, but he was going to impact the game. Just based how he was. Actually, Baltimore is the perfect template of what the Lions is. They don't have they may have a guy on their team right now that can be a Ray Lewis type of leader. Maybe not doing it the way Ray Lewis did, but their play can just show up. And that's how, if Stafford's going to be that guy, he got the ball in his hand, he had 12 years to be the Ray Lewis guy. And he never really was for me. That's why I can say, if I'm a new coach, the owner said, if the new coach or I got exactly what she said. She may have said the general manager. If the general manager wants Stafford, they'll keep Stafford. If they don't, they let him go. If I'm a new general manager, I don't want Stafford. As good as he can be and possibly you can win with him, I don't want him. And that could be my Herschel Walker deal. I may not get a fleece, or I may not be able to fleece someone, or I may not be able to get a king's ransom for Stafford, but I want to get something out of it. That's my Herschel Walker deal. But within these 4 games, I have to see, but see, that's tough because that's why I'm against the firing in the middle of the season. I'm against it because you don't really have nothing to go off of. I guess right now the next head coach is actually interviewing the team right now from this process on down. How the team is responding, the players responding, the upper management, and everything else is situated. The only thing part about where we'll make a head coach coach don't want to be here or general manager make it tough for them is because they don't really have much um, drafting assets or off season or assets to actually finish the deal was started. It's tough. So I think my guy that I would actually trade the most is Stafford or Galladay because I got two players there that actually can bring back some assets if they can do it right. So the Lions is looking for a Troy Weaver type of guy. We don't know much about him besides he was up under I think if I'm mistaken his name Pesty. I can't think of his name, but I know he was with Oklahoma. You don't know much about Troy Weaver, but when he came in, he did something that was really off the rails. Something that the Pistons organization haven't done like ever. He became aggressive, and not just aggressive. He showed a way. He showed it in a way that everybody can get behind it. Like, wow, we see what he's doing. He told you what he's going to do, and he actually executed. That's what you kind of like need here. Someone is fresh that's going to tell you what they're going to do, and immediately you see exactly what they're doing. They need draft capital, and I believe the two guys that they have that actually can gain them some. They got plenty of pieces that they can trade. Don't get me wrong. You got young players that you can trade to get capital, but the two guys that I would say like the golden goose is Matthew Stafford and Kenny Galladay. That's not going to sit well with the fans. Neither was trading Herschel Walker. That wasn't going to sit well with the fans. Or trading Khalil Mack if you're John Gruden. It's like, no, it's not going to work. But because you have to be willing to, like I said, to go up against the grain. You have to be doing something that's so authentic, so original, that you have to do something that's going to ruffle the fans, but at the same time, you got to say it, and you're going to have to start showing immediate results of executing it, where the fans can get behind it, the players can get behind it. So with that being said, I'm looking for it in the next 4 games, a particular guy to stand up, to showcase leadership. This will be a perfect time for Jarrad Davis to be the guy. Jarrad Davis, actually, this is the perfect time for Jarrad Davis to be the leader of this team. Regardless of all the scrutiny that he went through, and I put some oil to that fire, and regardless of all that, this is the perfect time for him to be the actual leader of this team. I believe he is a leader, and I believe he is the perfect guy for this type of situation. Matthew Stafford is a guy that I would desire for him to be the leader of this team. And not just leader in the meetings and so forth and everything else, but actually take the bull by the horn and actually turn his franchise around. And it can be done with him, even at the stage of his career. There's one guy on this team that's poised to bring that out. They may not even have to go outside to go get it. It actually legitimately can be here. It can just be, it's like a hidden treasure that's really just here right now. I got 2 candidates. I got Jarrad Davis, and if he's available, I don't know. I think he's on IR. I'm not sure. It would have been Troy Flowers. Those 2 guys. Jarrad Davis is the guy I'm going to elect now. Anybody from the New England way can actually do it. Anybody that came from the New England, like I said, New England way, but yeah, anybody that came from New England, they actually can do it because they actually been breeded to do it when it was in New England. It's a matter if they want to do it or not. So, with that being said, Lions fans, I salute.